Where are your Arnold Schwarzenegger action figures? I'll be back. I like this one even though it's not a very good joke. Because I get a chance to do Arnold. I'm really just doing that guy from Mad TV, Will Sasso, I think his name was. I think Mad TV might have been almost based. I mean, it wasn't, but like Mad TV was pretty good. And they had in the if you were around the late '90s, early aughts, it was like when Mad TV hit. It was somewhere in the middle between the All That Nickelodeon SNL sketch show and actual Saturday Night Live. Like Mad TV was somewhere in between there because like it was very childish stuff, but it was way more mature than All That in terms of content, but way less grounded than SNL. But it was way more fun. Mad TV was great, and they had I believe it was Will Sasso. It was the big guy, playing Arnold. And he was very funny at it. He'd be like, I come from the future. Arnold does make all those sounds. Now, Arnold's a weird quantity, and he's a great way to understand what's going on in the high circles of powers of Hollywood, because he fulfills an archetypal strongman role, which necessarily must have a conservative voicing, if you will. But he never has been a huge conservative because, as an Austrian, he's not German, he's Austrian. That's why he talks like he does. Because he's from Austria, which is like Germany, but not quite the same. And he at one time did say he admired old Adolf. And that's no good. But Adolf was a National Socialist. Now, how can he, an ostensible conservative who once the governor of California, will governor to California, I will actually escort the illegal aliens across the border, because the illegal aliens are most of the economy. And it was so funny when he took over The Apprentice. That was the end of Arnold Schwarzenegger's career. Is he took over The Apprentice from Donald Trump and failed miserably at it because he's not really a very good businessman. He's just in the circles of power. He used to do gay porno. That's how he started out. He was laying bricks in the Van Nuys or somewhere. And remember, I did that one video about how people who come from the Midwest to LA without a plan end up doing, they do dirty pictures. Well, apparently that's also how some of them started. Sly Stallone was in one called The Italian Stallion. Sly's actually conservative, though. I mean, in terms of intellectual honesty and actually being a tough guy. But both of these guys got their start that way. And, I mean, it makes sense. What basically happened with Sly is he got his capital that way, and he had written the movie Rocky, and he wanted to play. He basically wrote a vehicle for himself, and it was a good vehicle that resonated with people because it touched on universal themes and didn't have a main character who was an elite. He was a main character everybody could understand. But he wasn't one that was like, he was an everyman, but not an everyman. It showed what a normal person can achieve if they really put their mind to it and don't quit. And that's a message of overcoming, which is universal. And Arnold was in a lot of films like that as well, but he basically just gave himself up to the system and became the archetypical tough guy. But it was only archetypical. It wasn't actually legitimate, and his cachet allowed him to be governor, ostensibly a Republican, but he wasn't a Republican. He was a rhino. Arnold was a rhino. Yes, well, when you're a rhino in the government, you have to, act like you're trying to avoid all of the policies of the left, but really you're trying to push them, right? And he was telling somebody to put their mouth on a tailpipe, and he's like, hey, Greta Thunberg, look, you're my opportunity to be cool again. Everybody would think I'm cool if they see me hanging out with you, Greta. Nobody really bought that. They're like, oh, Arnold's hanging out with Greta Thunberg. I like a lot of his movies. Predator is classic. It's perfect machismo. It's a great action Americana, if you will. But number one, you couldn't make it today because they've tried and they've sucked. The new Prey, oh, it's a girl who wants to hunt because her tribe says she can't. Oh, wow, yay. So instead of an action movie, what we have today is a political statement. That's what I go to the theater to see. Oh, this Hollywood knows me. Things have changed. Things have changed. Ain't no two ways about it. Things have changed. So he occupied a niche back when there was a different way of thinking, defining Hollywood. You see. So when Arnold was doing what he was doing, people could identify with him. They could map themselves onto the strongman. But he hasn't been that guy for a while. Now he's in retirement. His daughter married Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt is the new Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I just hope old Chris isn't deep state. What they do, though, is they have these, call them media role models that actually are not what they represent themselves as being. You know, they will represent themselves as a uber manly conservative, you know, and in reality, you know, they started out in gay porno. That's how Arnold would say it. That's what they did. They started out doing that nasty stuff. Why? Well, it's desperate out there in Hollywood. You need some work. And golly, back in the 80s, outside of bricklaying, what were you going to do? You know, you're either going to do hard manual labor, or you're going to get an STD, and then you're going to bang Maria Shriver, and kill the predator. My favorite movie of his is definitely True Lies. That was a great movie. James Cameron did a good job on that. It's interesting with Schwarzenegger and Cameron because they worked together for so many movies, and then Cameron's like, all right, I'm just going to do the Titanic now. And as we all know, the Titanic sucked. But all the girls loved it. Oh, and they brought the boys to it again and again and again. Oh, it was perfect. It was a perfect psychological move. I mean, I'm not faulting him that. That was brilliant. Not one time have I ever been able to sit through the Titanic. I've tried multiple times. And they probably misrepresented the reality of it, too, because Hollywood's famous for doing that. And James Cameron is famous for, as South Park so gloriously pointed out, lowering that bar. Oh, my goodness. He made it lower than A.G. Bilbar, who's also a Swamp Thing. So you have all these false conservatives. And why are they here, and what are they doing, and what's really going on? Well, their thesis, antithesis, synthesis. It's a Hegelian dialectic triad. Essentially, they are here to give the false impression of a dialogue, when in reality it's a monologue. It's controlled opposition. And they who are doing it definitely know what they're up to. And that's what makes it so insidious, because the rest of us are sitting here like, hey, we just want, we want the truth. We don't want any shenanigans, but it's layer within layer, and then it turns out it's really upside down. It's very sneaky how they do this stuff, and you have to understand it. And that's one of the reasons it's so important to be based in Scripture. Biblically based, not just ideologically based or anything like that. Because Scripture shows where the lies are. You can actually understand, because there are certain things that Arnold wouldn't be doing if he actually were conservative and actually believed in traditional right ideology. For example, he wouldn't be endorsing the climate scam. One of the reasons he wouldn't be endorsing the climate scam is because the climate ideology has this perspective that it's got this perspective that we can be overpopulated, and that man is in control of the world over God, when in reality, the world itself is subject to celestial forces man has not controlled and never will have the ability to control. So the whole idea that just because we can build a spaceship, we can control the universe, or just because there's all these chlorofluorocarbons, there's such a big problem and mankind's going to wreck the planet, that sort of says God can't handle his own, toy chest, which is patently ridiculous. Of course he can, and he does, and he will, and that's what these what am I looking for? These false conservatives, these whatchamacallit, these controlled opposition. That's what they're really here for. They're buzzards. They're buzzards circling around the meat. And as they circle around the meat and it dies, they get a little bit here and a little bit there, and you know, they benefit from it. So they're not as advertised. They're controlled opposition. And controlled opposition, it's a Muppet. Muppet gonna mupp, as old Fleckus says. Muppet's gonna mupp. And that's what they're doing. They're mupping. They're mupping and pupping and hupping and dupping and all that crap. So the idea that Arnold or these other guys are conservative, no. What they are is a voice of controlled opposition that allows those in control of them to more cogently take the narrative. And they do that quite well. I don't know, this is some kind of turkey vulture. And that's what I'm going to call this turkey vulture. Because Arnold is really big turkey, but in reality he's a vulture. Right? It also looks like that one transatlantic jet with the nose, but it's got a weird thing on the back like a space shuttle. Right? Yeah, I'm done.